Thanks, man. My name is Will Brouwer. I'm with Viavi Solutions. I am a project manager for new product introductions. I'm also working on the product engineering as well. So I'm involved in all aspects of multiple products with Viavi Solutions, formerly JDSU. Now, my slide, I don't want to be too cliche-ish here, but it's a journey and it's a destination. What I meant by that is very much what Richard mentioned is, will we ever be done with this? We're always evolving and changing our business practices, and one of those drivers is how the R&D teams develop their products. So we talk about Agile and how to deal with epics and burn down charts and getting those requirements delivered to the customer. And hey, wait a second, we got to sell this thing. You know, it always, development is racing through this process of delivering all this value, but yet on the back side of it, and in operation world, we still have to deliver a finished good and sell it and make money. And so when we look at this journey to destination kind of thing, we're always evolving and dealing with changes in the way we develop the product, deliver the product, and again, very much hardware-centric. How do we deliver it from a hardware perspective? We have contract manufacturers that need to build and develop the product, and we needed to develop it and deliver it to the customer, maybe from a contract manufacturer. Oh, but then later we have to essentially deliver a license that they want to increase a quantity, or they want to deliver some sort of new feature on a platform. But that came to the contract manufacturer. How do we deliver it virtually? Those are the things that Viavi Solutions, I got to keep working on that, really have to evolve into and adapt to. So this is, Viavi was JDSU. We split off our optical group. It's now called Lumentum. We have Viavi Solutions here. There's two kind of business units within Viavi Solutions. We have our optical security and performance systems division, and if you pull out a $20 bill, a $100 bill, anybody have a $100 bill they want me to use for a minute? No, I didn't think so. I'm a pretty lucky guy lately here, so I might keep it. But that color pigmentation that you see in the 150s and $10 bills, that changing color pigmentation is one of the technologies that Viavi Solution owns. It's used on all currencies across the world, so we really touch the money really well here. My division is the Network and Service Enablement Division, or NSE, and we work with all large service providers, small, medium, large service providers, and we deal with everything from the handheld tools that Comcast, the technician from Comcast shows up at your house, plugs in this little RF tester and measures and tests out the linkage between your cable modem and the core office. And we also have a product called Cell Advisor. I thought it was really neat. It's an all-in-one little device. It's an RF spectrum analyzer. It's essentially a Wi-Fi tool to test radio frequencies and impairments. It is a fiber cleaning kit. You know, it's just really interesting. You can take a look at the fiber, and you clean it up, and then you can actually certify it, and you send the data about that fiber connection back to the network, and they basically create a catalog of all the terminations that are related to that cell tower. And it kind of tells you how strict and how imperative it is to support the core network and to utilize these kinds of tools to make sure that your service works well. Everybody's using their Wi-Fi connection or their phones right now. I can see a lot of you guys doing it now. And all of that back-end infrastructure is supported by test tools, test and measurement tools. There's a few more data points here on the slide here to give you an idea what the business is like. My motivation here is to talk to you about where we are a little bit on the development cycle, the delivery cycle for entitlement management and licensing. Again, HP is a little bit further along. We're more in the Neanderthal stage a little bit, where we have a lot of different acquisitions. JDSU/Viavi Solutions is a lot of different acquisitions. We have bought Network Instruments, Agilent Technologies. All of those businesses have different business practices, best practices. They bring along with them different tool sets, different licensing, different entitlement delivery systems. Not too long ago, it was really kind of humorous. I was seeing the entitlement document. It looked just like our Agilent document there on the slide there from HP. And we were sending that with a CD distribution of software, and we're moving away from that. We went to, again, a competitor's tool, as well as our own tools, as well as using SafeNet Sentinel RMS licensing. We just have a plethora of different solutions. We're trying to get into a consolidated best practice model here where we can start to deliver things more effectively, more consistent. Now, again, we're a little further or earlier on in the stage, but our goal really is to develop a strong customer experience, being able to have an access portal that covers the entire experience. Let's say you have a knowledge base and you want to share that information related to the product that you purchased. And oh yeah, by the way, you have support tickets on that product. Sometimes you don't want to have support tickets in the same customer portal because you don't want to expose how bad your product is doing, or good it is. But in the end, you want to be able to share common data across the board with a lot of different, if you will, applications that you're trying to present to the customer to add that value. So the other side of it is back office and product development. Again, I touched on that a little bit, but our product line managers are always coming up with new and creative ways to sell a product. And from an operations standpoint, you always have to try to figure out a way to adapt to that new requirement that the product managers are driving towards. But again, it's generally driven by our customers. On top of that, we have our back office. The idea of a touchless order fulfillment model, I think, is slightly a misnomer because there is always some degree. I think we could get to 80% of a touchless order fulfillment model, but in a lot of ways, there's some customization, there's some change in the way the order fulfillment works that you have to be able to manually jump in and adjust the order, cancel the order, add an item to the order, those kinds of things. So you have to be able to have that kind of capability in the tool sets that you're working with from a back office standpoint. And obviously our system of record is Oracle. We use that. That's our system, and there is a lot of heavy lifting involved in dealing with the how do you want to say, anybody from Oracle here? Okay, inefficiencies that they've implemented into their ERP system. Global templates, the way we define how we sell goods internationally as well as locally here in the States. How do we deal with service contracts? Service contracts are sold and delivered in country. How do we kind of close out the books on professional services and things like that? Again, you're selling finished goods, you're selling service contracts, you're selling things that need to be amortized over a 12-month period. How do you close out those things? So let's see here. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you noticed that little graphics there is the kind of a Viavi / port. I'm putting in a plug for Dave there. And this is something that we worked out, just kind of worked through some workflows, right, Dave, on a web page there, and working with Stellar. And I think you have it in the back here, right? As a little bit of a demo there. The other thing I wanted to talk about too was just our product line managers. This is back to our product line managers. The use cases and models that we have here for delivering licensing, delivering our entitlements, delivering the value of our product. We have large systems that we sell that monitor large networks, and essentially that is delivered by our professional services organization. And we go through a whole process of delivering it, customizing it, essentially getting all of the components plugged in, configured, collecting the appropriate data from the appropriate points, and then representing that to a customer. That's the way the application is. But in the end, I really am selling a professional services component, and I built this infrastructure. Now it's in place. And we trust those customers. That's that little baby hand, that we have with that graphic from HP again, is our trusted customer. And we don't have necessarily any licensing involved in that. But later on, what happens is that the customer wants to buy additional capacity, or they want to add a new feature. So how do you go from professional services going through an acceptance test process? They sign off on it. We got the statement of work. Everything is done. Okay, they bought it. Now they say, hey, can I add 10 more of those? Does that mean I got to send 10 more professional service people out to the customer and charge them, 10 or 15 grand in travel expenses and get that next, essential licensing capability in place? Did something happen there? There you go. I must have hit it. Thank you. So what we have to do is the tool sets that we have to adapt not only from an entitlement level. We want to sell the entitlement to the customer. Professional services delivers that solution. But then on the backside, we still have to have entitlement and licensing added to it so we can sell in a more robust or automated way back to the customer after that implementation is done. So those are some of the things that we deal with a trusted customer. Now, you're familiar with node lock, floating licenses, and the virtual instance of floating licenses. Those are pretty common things that we can do with licensing. But one of the things that we have with our product and our customers is we deal with large service providers. It's a protected, behind a firewall kind of environment, or on-premise, if I think that was the term used here. But we have to basically do a two-step dance. We have to do the entitlement. Customer wants to download the software. They want to get that activation license or license key, but they have to drop it on something intermediary, put it on a USB stick, and then go inside the network. That's one way of doing it. Or you can do a hosted environment where you have essentially, you do that one step, and then you have a hosted server on the other side of the firewall, and you have a fully loaded configuration, and it starts to distribute the licenses behind the firewall. So there's a lot of different ways of dealing with it. But that was one other thing I wanted to talk about too, is the hardware-based activation. Let's see if I can. This little guy here, you talk about Internet of Things. This is a small form pluggable transceiver, and what we've done is we introduced a nice little ASIC here that basically does packet capture. It inspects all traffic through a 1 gig interface. We're introducing a 10 gig interface, but essentially what we can do is inspect the traffic through filters, and we pick off some data of interest, and we feed that back into the core network. We have analytic systems behind it, and essentially we can grab really interesting data and measure a lot of data with this. This is a very prolific little device here, but licensing is really a challenge because it's out in the network behind a firewall. You want to be able to create that hosted environment to deal with all the activations. There's hundreds of thousands of these little devices out in the network. So how do you manage, again, delivering an activation code based on an entitlement that's behind a firewall that has so many devices that we, actually the licensing, another little piece here, licensing is done by our contract manufacturer during manufacturing. So we have a relationship between the manufacturing process and essentially, and it's sold. We give this off to Cisco, or we sell it ourselves, or different customers that may sell it. But we have this database out here that maintains all that information and has a catalog of all of the details about these little guys when we manufacture them. They can plug this thing into the network and it works just like an SFP. It just terminates the 1 gig or 10 gig interface. But after a while they go, hey, I'd like to turn on that smarts. How am I going to turn on the smarts? Well, I got to call up Viavi Solutions. I buy an entitlement. They're going to have to do some unique things to figure out how to get the information from the network to create an activation file based on all the things they discovered on the network. So again, I'm not trying to whine here a little bit, but it's just there is a lot of challenges when you start talking about Internet of Things. This is kind of an example of an Internet of Things. Granted, it's still within the core network, but it's a small little device, EEPROMs, little key systems that manage a lot of different diverse components in the core of the network. So, the purpose of this slide is to talk a little bit more about the value of the infrastructure that we're talking about here, the We talked about what the entitlement management and the licensing models, and also behind it, how do we distribute our software efficiently and electronically. And some of these things, to sell that infrastructure to the stakeholders, here's some of the values that I've been using in our core group. So one of those things is, how do we effectively sell finished goods, and it's how do we effectively sell service contracts. How do we track those things? We need an entitlement management system that adapts to both. But on the other side of it, how do I deal with VSOE? That's a four-letter word to a lot of people. But VSOE is basically establishing that value over a period of time on a product in order to essentially realize the revenue against it. We have service contracts are really challenging in that way. We have to deal with a 12-month renewal, essentially, and every month we would love to see that service contract associated with a $100 million, let's say, installation. We want to be able to make sure that the customer, that we see the revenue on that, let's say, 5% on that support contract over the 12 months. So you have to build into your system the ability to, analyze what the customer has, have a catalog of information about what the customer has in their install base, and essentially then deal with the support contract as it matures through the 12-month period. Our financial people love the idea of being able to track and audit this life cycle of the finance and value of our products, and we need the tool sets to do those things. And again, that's what we're looking at, is the Gemalto, getting a new company name involved here, Gemalto solution. Is it still called Sentinel Gemalto Sentinel now? Okay, all right. Oh, is that what that stuff is? I forgot to read that. So, the other thing is some interesting things on the other side, from the operational model side. TL9000, you have a lot of different metrics that you use to measure the performance of the company, and that gets reported up to the stakeholders, and also to business and shareholders. And concepts like IDE, initial delivery errors, those kinds of metrics need to be collected. And how do you do that with software that's delivered virtually? So you have to think about those kinds of things. And then finally, our product managers are definitely coming up with new and creative ways of delivering things and delivering software, using hardware, software solutions that are being pushed into the network in a virtual way, and they want to be able to take that software and move it, let's say, from one region of the country to the other. And what that means is service providers do a deployment model. They have to size it, dimension the network. They do active tests. They ping, 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 and then they roll the customers on it. So they do a lot of machine-to-machine type of testing, and then they collect that information. Then they put in that virtual system there, and then it does its work. We have to be able to license that capability, even though there's no real service providers on there, or subscribers on there, excuse me. So do we sell a license that is more of a machine-to-machine active test, and then when we get real service subscribers on it, then we want to charge them more for the capability? It's just a concept that we got there. So I'm going to skip this slide here, because I pretty much talked about it. Some of the takeaways that we have are you need to really define and work through the process of defining your goals and also your pain points. Don't forget the pain points, obviously. So there's a model where I took the approach of letting everybody know what we were going to do. I let all the stakeholders know. I went through a process of introducing the solutions and where our pain points were, built out a total cost of ownership, return on investment, what this all means to the overall business. And everybody said, great, this is what we want to do. But then when it actually came to financing some of the efforts, it was not really, you got to put your money where your mouth is. It didn't happen as much as we wanted. We did sign a contract. We got ourselves started. So that was kind of where we went to the next step. We did this minimal viable solution. We started small then. We kind of did an end around and started doing small things, doing pilots and products, showing the value again and driving it back up. But in the end, what I had to do was sell and resell and resell to the stakeholders. I had to go back in every time, re-educate, resell the business. And you can almost get to the point where you're just spinning your wheels. And yeah, so at some point, one of those things is we at Viavi Solutions, we have an inflection point. The company's changing now. The company now is split off. They look back at what all the business issues that they've been working on, and they go, yeah, this is the time to do this sort of thing. This is where we're going to start to build out and work hard and build that, improve our customer experience. And that's kind of where Viavi Solutions is today. Is got a lot of great products, got a lot of great technology, and we have a good way of delivering what we have today. But we got a long ways to go as far as improving the overall process. And we really see Gemalto as being a real key cornerstone component to our vision. And by the way, Viavi means a vision to a view. So it's a little bit of, a little bit of an ideology, kind of a cliche, but it is absolutely where the company wants to go, is to transition from that traditional hardware acquisition company and really streamline our business. So that's all I have for today.
Thank you. Thank you, Will. Thank you.